Thomas, Morning Kombat, longtime viewer and grader and analyst of mixed martial arts. Should the UFC listen to a very loud section of fans complaining about that fight and kind of tying it to some other fights that maybe haven't been aesthetically pleasing?
So I'm so glad you asked me this. I want to caution your audience. What I'm about to say may not represent your opinion, and it may not represent even what I would consider to be like some version of the majority opinion. It may not coincide with either of those, but it has the distinct quality of being the correct opinion. So please listen very, very closely. Khamzat Chimaev's next fight might be a barn burner. I think he made a strategic decision in this fight to play a conservative game. The evidence does not show that he is traditionally very conservative in his offense. This to me was a bit of a one-off. So I can easily forgive it if he goes back out there and just opens up a little bit in the next one. But what he did is what a lot of guys are doing, which is they're getting to control positions where, let's say they're behind them, right? So let's say they're both standing. One guy's got his hands locked behind the other one, and the guy who's got his hands locked can't really seem to meaningfully advance, and then the guy who's getting locked can't seem to break it, and they just kind of in space, and what ends up happening is the guy who's got locked hands will then pepper the other fighter with shots. What people with bad opinions in the fight game will tell you is, well, he got to that position, he should just be allowed to have it. But people like me who know the rules will tell you that the fighter is not allowed to hang out and just do busy work because he has reached an advantageous position. He must, or she, continue to advance the fight. If you're in guard, you need to try to pass. If you're not going to pass, you need to do ground and pound. You have to do something to advance your cause. And maintaining positional control, because the other guy can't extricate himself, is an argument in favor of stalling in the sport. And it's not the correct one, and it's not the one that anyone should be advocating.
Okay, I got to ask the question to everybody who needs to know here. How is there not a move called the Hazmat suit that he uses on people, like a hold or something? He gets people,
Maybe that was it.
Yeah, I guess that's it, but I think that'd be awesome.
You know what? Now that you bring it up, I can't believe someone hasn't gone to that yet. That's actually kind of, and plus, to your point, like he wore him like a blanket. You know what I mean? Like, golly, dude, you got to figure that one out fast. And someone tell his manager they're going to steal your idea.
Professional comedian. Believe it or not, Greg Salerno with that line. That was actually very good. Salerno, Cofield, Luke Thomas. That was a compliment. I know it didn't sound like one. It was a compliment. You're like, you're mocking on me? I'm like, not really. It was a good line. Can Chimaev run roughshod over the middleweight division?
It's a great question. I think one of the big things that I don't have an answer to coming out of this fight that I'm kind of wondering is, Khamzat Chimaev in previous contests was not so great about managing his resources. He would fight like Evel Knievel, right? Shot out of a cannon and just go for it. And then you would have a precipitous drop-off in his offensive quality over the course of a 3-round contest. But here he has a 5-round one, and he manages it well. The question you have to ask yourself is, did he manage the resources well? Obviously because he had to, but in so dividing them the way that he did over the course of 25 minutes, did he fight conservative because that's all the energy that he has? Or did he do that because he has more energy, but the strategy itself was conservative? In other words, can he fight 25 minutes and be more offensive? This fight didn't really give you an answer to that. It just gave you what he could do with control position. So I would say this: if the guy who showed up against DDP shows up every time, I'm going to favor Khamzat. But I think guys like Anthony Hernandez, Fluffy Hernandez, has a real good shot of beating him. I might even throw in Kyle Bahalio. I think RDR, Renier de Ritter, another guy you could maybe consider for that. Although I'm less convinced by that. And there's some other names too, Nasruddin Imavov. But I would say Fluffy Hernandez, I think, can give him a very different fight, and that dude's offense only grows over time. He actually doesn't need to manage resources, and that makes him a very interesting matchup.
Luke Thomas is on Cofield Company. Recap of UFC 319. Looking ahead to what UFC's got the rest of the year and then the future as they move to a new TV carrier. I mentioned that fight is kind of representative of some other fights that we've seen where people have griped about grappling. Is that fight and some other boring fights, is that the result when you build a roster of kind of lower paid former Soviet Union guys whose base is grappling?
The short answer is yes. Yes. The sport has greatly benefited. We should be very clear about this. The sport has greatly benefited from the Caucasus Mountains region. So this would include places like Georgia, Ossetia. This would have an influence on Olympic wrestling. That's where a lot of the Olympic wrestlers out of Russia come from. And then, of course, any number of very, very good MMA fighters. It's a hotbed, and they have made MMA better. At the same time, it does kind of go back to what you were talking about, where there's also a little bit of parity of skill. It's also that, you can see that one guy can put a lead on another one, but sometimes they have difficulty closing the show. And you're getting very good athletes from there who are having to compete for the purchasing value of the American dollar does for them, whereas I think, domestically athletes are making a little bit more of a calculated cost-benefit analysis, and that's definitely affecting who's being recruited into the sport. But I would say, Steve, I'm telling you, it is worth considering when you actually look at the rules. The other component here is a lot of people simply don't know what the rules are and what they call for, and what they're looking at is basically legalized stalling. And I think more than anything else in the way in which MMA fights are conducted, the referees to police this is actually critical for the sport's support.